Hello, everybody, and welcome on into Sidelines presented by Visit Potter-Tioga. I'm Drew Patrick. We have a jam-packed, extra-long show for you today as we talk basketball, we talk track and field, and we talk strength and conditioning. It's going to be a good one. Welcome back to Sidelines. Let's talk with Justice Smith coming off a record-breaking week. Justice, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
So, let's get right into it. The last game that you guys played was that Wednesday and 56 points. Walk me through that game.
Honestly, it was just a close game, and I was just doing whatever it took to win. And then all my shots were falling, so I just kept being aggressive, and then I broke the record.
What were some of the keys during that game for you to get going? Yes, you mentioned that's a close game. It's a battle back and forth. They went into overtime. What were some of the things, the lanes there that clicked for you to just be able to attack the basket?
Honestly, it just started in practice because my coach, we talked about just finding our sweet spots, just being able to find our sweet spots within the game, just find out pick your spots in the game, where you succeed at most, and that's honestly what I was just doing. Just finding my sweet spots all game, and ended up scoring 56.
So you've been in an interesting kind of point in your career because this isn't your first year here, but it is your first year playing. What has been kind of chomping at the bit, ready to go, finally being able to get out there and play competitive basketball at the collegiate level? What has that been like for you this year?
It's kind of been crazy because going in early into the season, I feel like I wasn't playing the way I was supposed to because I kind of put a lot of pressure on myself, knowing what potential I had. And honestly, it's great to finally see that I'm starting to be able to play the way that I know that I can play and that I'm capable of playing. So it's not just great, I put in a lot of hard work the past 2 years being here, and it's just great to finally be able to help this team win games.
Yeah, especially helping teams win games. The last couple of games, you guys are on this win streak. Obviously, after a tough start, what has been the thing chemistry-wise with everyone on the court that has kind of clicked to help lead to this win streak?
Honestly, I think after the Shippensburg game, we saw that we have a good team and that we can compete, and I feel like it finally gave us that confidence because we're all young and this is really all our first year, most of us, our first year playing, and then we got sophomores who they've been out for a year, so it's honestly, it's hard. It was kind of hard for us to get to gel together because Scotty, me, we were the mans at our high school, so it's trying to play together on a college team. It's really hard. So I feel like we're starting to finally get it and starting to bring it together.
So that Shippensburg game, the fight back in it, was there a noticeable click, or what was the key thing that you're well, we can compete now?
Because we know they're all a bunch of seniors and juniors, so it was if we can compete with them, we can compete with anyone. And last year they lost in the conference championship, so it's if we can, like I just said, if we can compete with them, we can compete with anyone. I feel like that's finally clicked with us, and now we're starting to see it come together. I feel like we're starting to compete and starting to win games. I feel like it's just going to bring all of us together.
Absolutely.
It's going to keep happening, yeah.
So I want to go quickly back to a personal accolade for you. PSAC Athlete of the Week. What does that award mean to you for this past week?
It means a lot for me and my teammates because it gives us a lot of recognition, showing us the success that we're having as a team, and I feel like it's just going to keep helping us build together. We're going to keep competing and keep winning. I feel like we're starting to come together really well.
So on this win streak, and obviously this weekend, snowstorm, other things, you get shut down and don't get to play that game on Saturday. How do you, though, still try to carry that momentum from the win streak, even with a little bit of a break?
Honestly, just not letting it get to us, not letting it phase us, because I feel like we're hungry right now. We see that we're right there. We're right there for the playoff push, and that's what we really want. So I feel like nothing's really going to stop us right now. We're all hungry, and we just want to win. That's it.
The other thing, too, for Wednesday's game is it's the first game away from home in quite some time. Not as long of a trip as you guys have gone on, but What is going to be the key to try and continue that momentum or get it right on the road, sort of thing?
Just playing together. I feel like that's our biggest thing. Like when we play together and we stay positive with each other all game, we could be very successful. And I feel like as long as we do that, we'll be able to win.
And then back on Saturday, obviously not wanting you to look past Wednesday, but then Saturday back at home. What is it going to be to be back in front of the fans again?
Yeah, it's going to be great. We definitely want to take it one game at a time, but playing here, I feel like having fans now finally, like back after, because we had break, I feel like they definitely help us a lot, and I feel like they give us a lot of momentum and a lot of energy, and I feel like it helps us.
So, what are your? Actually, I want to talk quickly about the fact something you touched on, the fact that you guys are such a young team, and you are all the guys in your school and trying to work together now. From a leadership perspective, then with a group of young team, how do you approach leadership style? Is it a lead by example? Is it kind of a trying to find that vocal leader? What do you guys do with such a young team?
I think it definitely, we had a lot of like trial and error. It was kind of I feel like I tried to be a vocal leader, but like it kind of didn't work. So I kind of just chose to lead by example. And I feel like leading by example is helping us like way more, because just me being in practice, going hard every day, I feel like that helps us way more, yeah.
Well, Justice, congratulations on a great week this past week, and thank you so much for taking the time to
Thanks
talk
for
about
having
it.
me. Appreciate it.
And Sidelines continues after this. Do not go anywhere.
It's all part of Mother Nature's perfect blend, the keystone of the Keystone State. Visit Potter-Tioga, a 2-county scenic outdoor haven conveniently located, yet worlds apart. A place where you can kick back, unwind, and forget about the pressures of life. Disconnect and reconnect with your friends, family, or even yourself while surrounded by nature's beauty. So start planning your adventures today at visitpottertioga.com.
Welcome back to Sidelines. Let's talk men's basketball, as now we have joining us at the desk the head coach of the men's basketball team, John Szentesy. Coach, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, Drew. No problem.
So let's talk about this past week, a shorter week for you, but what a game we had there on Wednesday. Let's start with the big story. Justice Smith, record-breaking night for him. From the coach's perspective, what was it like for you to witness that?
As the game was going on, and you don't really think about records, you don't think about anything except what do we need to do to win this game. And the guys in the huddle probably laughed, but I can't remember saying a whole lot of different things during timeouts or media timeouts other than we got to keep doing the same thing. We got to keep doing the same thing. Keep the floor spread. Let's open up driving lanes, drive and kick. Just keep doing the same thing we've been doing. And we really made very few adjustments throughout the game. But when you have a player like Justice who got rolling and is very capable of doing that, you don't change much. There's no reason, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, right? So let's go with it. And by the end, I didn't really realize how many points he had other than a lot. But the biggest thing to me was 9 assists and 0 turnovers for a guy that handles the ball as much as he did in that game. 12 rebounds. I mean, it was probably the most complete game I've ever witnessed in 30 years of men's basketball at Mansfield University. And efficiency offensively with shooting percentage and free throws and the rebounding, and just he was incredible that day. And that's something for the last 2 years in practice knew he was capable of doing, but haven't been able to see it on the floor in games until more recently. So, but it was a great night for Justice and our program as well.
And it was interesting that night because both of those games went into the women's game and your game went into overtime. But during that women's overtime period where you guys are waiting to warm up, how do you go and adjust to that? Is there something said, or do you just hope the guys can get in the mindset of having to wait a little bit longer for the women's game to finish?
Well, I guess we could thank Coach Amy and Coach Woods from the experience of the Westchester game the previous weekend that also had gone into overtime. So this wasn't our first experience with a women's game going into overtime and tipping off right after. Once you realize it is going into overtime and there's going to be extra time, the only thing I'm letting them do is try to stay loose. All right, get behind, go in the hallway or whatever you have to do to keep yourself loose, stretch. But the focus was never different in any way, shape, or form, other than, hey, let's root on the women and stay loose as much as we can.
So, I mean, that goes into the last 3 home games. Having this home win streak, having this win streak, and having all those games at home. What have been the things, after a rough start, what have been some of the things that have started to click with this team and led to these victories?
I don't think it's any one thing, Drew, other than resiliency and perseverance. I knew a year ago when we were going to have such a young team that it was going to take time to get guys together, to have chemistry, to really get moving and doing things the way we want to. And I knew we'd be playing our best basketball in February. I've said that all year long and all fall, and even over the winter. When things weren't going our way on the scoreboard, we still felt as coaches, Coach Knapp and I, that we were improving every day. Although the scoreboard may not have reflected, an improvement, but we noticed it in practice, we noticed it in games, statistics, things that are happening that are going better for us, and you just have to hang in. You have to hang in, and it's hard, and we talked about it. Controlling the controllables. You can control your attitude in the morning when you wake up. You can control being on time to classes. You can control your work ethic in practice. You can't control the weather. You can't control being shut down due to COVID or weather concerns or a lot of other things. So you can't let that get to you. But as hard as it was, our guys I think did a really good job of staying positive through adversity, which for young people, it's tough when you're losing like that and you're putting in the work and you're not seeing the results on the scoreboard. And I think you have to just get that one experience, that one game where you say, there it is. We knew we could do this, and now the confidence changes, and you start seeing some positive results. But it's not that it's one thing. I think other than our youth is starting to understand how the college game is played. The guys have caught up to the speed of the game, especially, Scotty Woodring's really been rebounding the ball very, very well the last 2 weeks, playing stronger, more confident. Same thing with Justice as well. Been doing a great job on the glass for us, really starting to figure out how to, how the college game is at this level. And the last time a lot of these guys played in a competitive environment was in high school, some of them 2 or 3 years ago. So it takes time to adjust, and I'm just proud of the guys for hanging in and believing in themselves and each other.
So the momentum of this win streak, of those things you talked about, how do you carry that over to this week? Because, you're used to the rhythm, and you got the team in a rhythm, and then the rhythm broke for this past weekend in terms of a shutdown. But how do you go about trying to find that momentum back or try to continue that momentum?
It's a good question in that I don't think we're going to change anything that we're doing. Look at it as maybe we just had a few days to recover and maybe get, if we were banged up at all, get a little healthier. The good news is we won our last game, and a lot of people say you're only as good as your last game, and so we won that, so we still have that momentum going for us. Sure, it would have been nice to be able to continue playing over the weekend, but once again, control the controllables. We couldn't control a COVID shutdown and a winter storm kind of at the same time. So all right, we're going to practice on what we practiced yesterday. We'll practice today, and we'll go down to Lock Haven tomorrow with the same energy, same intent that we've had.
So that Lock Haven matchup, again, it's the first road matchup since Saturday didn't happen. The first road matchup in quite a while for you team. So how do you readjust then to going back on the road?
Fortunately, it's not a 4-hour trip.
That is true.
I think that is one of the positives of this road game is it is our most local away game that we're going to play. So it's not a terrible long trip. Lock Haven played really well over the weekend against Kutztown and had a double-digit win at Kutztown. So they're playing really well right now. Playing on the road's a little different in the conference, and you've got to be able to play well and get some wins on the road in order to be a playoff team. So this is a game we've got to play extremely well in order for us to have a chance to win, and that's the goal. But I think the guys that the road trips we've had have been long, and we've been able to withstand some going down to Westchester, having a tough loss after a 4-hour bus ride, 2-point loss at Westchester, and turn around and coming back makes for a long day. But I think it's something we're up for. We can handle it.
And then not having you look past Wednesday, but then this weekend back at home where things have been clicking and Millersville comes into town. What do you expect from that group?
Millersville's really playing well. I mean, they're in first place in the East right now. They've had big wins over Shippensburg, over East Stroudsburg in the last week, and they're a very, very senior-ridden team with upperclassmen. They have a really complete team. They have shooters, they have size, they have ball handlers, they can play defense. They're really a complete team at this point. So fortunately, we get them in our gym, which is usually a tougher thing for teams to have to come up to Mansfield and play in Decker. And if we have a good home court advantage with a good crowd on Saturday, we'll ride the momentum of our crowd and play as hard as we can, and we'll see what happens. I'm excited for that challenge as well.
Should be a fun week. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time and stopping by.
No problem, Drew. Thank you.
And Sidelines continues after this. Do not go anywhere.
Pride and passion drives the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference. From 55 NCAA championship teams, 294 individual national champs, and counting. Who's next? Make the PSAC yours. PSAC Proud is winning in athletics and in the classroom. Over 3,100 PSAC student athletes are honored as scholar athletes. It's a perfect mix of athletics and academics. It's time to make the PSAC yours.
Welcome back to Sidelines. Let's talk track and field, and let's preview a pretty big meet coming up this weekend with head coach Jamal Johnson. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Not a problem.
So we're here at the final stretch, so to speak, of the indoor season, where now really the push to get those players or those athletes not qualified starts to come in the back of the mind. What are your focuses on these last couple of weeks before that point?
Well, this weekend, it'll be our best chance to do that. We go to VMI, Virginia Military Institute. It's a Division I meet. It's a really competitive meet. It's a fast track. So we're looking to tap a few of those ends for sure this weekend.
So at a bigger meet, and I guess every athlete is different, and you know that too, but do you find that because it's a bigger meet with a lot of people, the competitive juices get kind of flowing better, or what is the correlation that you have seen between real success at these bigger meets?
I think it's just that. And I was telling the team yesterday, I'm excited for this weekend because, like you just said, it gets your competitive juices flowing, and going to, I guess, a bigger stage, it's kind of setting us up for the conference championship in 2 weeks, and it's just getting our minds in that mode. It's like, okay, well, now it's time to go. Now it's time to try to, get things right. Now it's time to get our diet right. Now it's time to hydrate properly. Now it's time to go out and be as perfect as we can at this point.
Mm-hmm. So, the thing with Virginia, you're going down to Virginia, so it's the longest trip that you guys make as a team. So, do you kind of use these long trips, and you're staying over there, obviously, as sort of a more team bonding thing, or how do you approach these longer trips with this group?
It will be more of a team bonding. I feel like this season so far, I think the team has kind of been all over the place, to be honest, as far as not really gelling well. That's because we've had, the first one was Edinburgh. It was people not here from home, not back, on campus just yet. That was January 15th. Then the following weekend, we weren't able to go to Spire, so we just had to do a trip up to Houghton real quick. And so we weren't really able to really spend that time together. And so this one, the 6 hours on the bus together, the eating dinner Thursday night together, the being at the track all day Friday together, and eating dinner again Friday night, and then, being at the track all day Saturday together, and then going back on a 6-hour trip back home. So I'm looking forward to seeing the full team get together, because now it's just we sometimes talk at a track meet, but now we really get to spend time together.
How important do you think is that aspect? Because everyone always says, oh, track is such an individualized sport, but to be able to have that camaraderie with each other, how important is that?
It's important. It's very important because, just because, you're on a team where it is somewhat an individual sport, you still have relays. And you still have to trust your teammates. And in order to trust your teammates, you have to know your teammates. So I think being together as one I think you can accomplish a lot of things as a team once you trust each other and know each other.
So looking at this meet, who are some athletes really to look out for and that you expect to put on a show, so to speak, at VMI, or really make that jump at VMI?
I can go in a few directions. Carly is finally running her 5K this upcoming weekend. She was slated to run it a few times, but it just had to cancel a couple times. Sean is trying to break that elusive 200-meter record. For some reason, he has not been able to do it. It's not super competitive, the record, but he just hasn't been able to do it. I think he struggles a little bit more with the turns for indoor season than outdoor. It'll be a really competitive meet for the long jumpers because 2 of the best jumpers in the conference will be there from Shippensburg, so it'll be good to see them in a different setting. The DMRs will be running for the first time this year, so we're trying to get some DMR marks to get ready for the conference meet. I think, like I said, this is the last, yes, we still have the last chance to meet at Bucknell next week, but this is like the last, real chance to get some marks in.
And yeah, just you also have that week, because then you have to kind of gauge health and recovery type thing for that next week, that week right before championship.
Exactly.
So yeah, I get that this meet is very important. So I guess kind of the last thing with this meet specifically and what you're looking to stand out, some of the younger athletes or newer athletes here who are pushing, who are some of those who are just this close to getting in that have the ability to have a big meet?
I think Skylar's really close. I don't know if she'll actually hit the automatic mark in the 200, but I think that she does run fast. I think that she does go in the 26s. I don't know if that'll actually get her in, but I think that it'll be a huge improvement for her. I think that Aaliyah should be able to run 25 in the 200, unconverted, of course. So on the 200-meter bank track, you don't get a conversion in it. I'm excited to see what David's going to do with a little bit more competition in his distance races. Yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm just excited to see how the team responds to such a big meet. Just a lot of people's first time being in a big atmosphere like this. So how I like to do it is I like to have meets like this, either earlier in season or right before the conference meet too. Like I said, trying to get us ready, for the conference meet. Like last outdoor season, we went down to James Madison, which is also in Virginia. And at that point in the season when we went, like that was a wake-up call for everyone. I remember Donovan talking about going down there, and we were only, as you know, we were the only Division II school there, and just having our eyes widened, and just taking a step back and like, okay, well, we only got 2 more weeks to get ready. Let's get this thing together.
Yeah, that's really kind of an interesting point and an interesting thing to look at. That, yeah, when you go to a bigger meet, sometimes, especially a young team like you have, the eyes will go, woo.
It will be like that.
So then what do you have to do as the coach to try and bring down the eyes?
One thing is, it's still the same clock, no matter what track, no matter who's in your race, it's still the same clock. It's still most of the time it's the same pit. Sometimes it's not the same pit, but have to remind them that this is where they want to be. Essentially, some of them have aspirations of doing really well at the conference meet, or down the line beyond conference. So this is what it's going to take. You're going to have to get used to these types of competitions, to where you're not going to be the fastest person there all the time, and you just have to focus on what you have to do, whether if it's the proper block start, whether if it's going out in the right pace for your distance races, or executing your jumps well. You have to do everything right at this point.
Well, Coach, thank you so much. It should be a fun weekend. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Not a problem. Thank you.
And Sidelines continues after this. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back into Sidelines. Let's talk strength and conditioning, as we have our strength and conditioning coach here with me at the desk, Greg Gustin. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, you deal with every student athlete on campus. So my first real question is what have been the keys for the difference between in-season athletes and the out-of-season athletes in terms of training?
Well, for the most part, it's just a big change in how often we train and how much load we put on them. It's balancing their practices and games while they're in season and trying to get it right throughout the week. Off-season is really just, our main priority is essentially strength and conditioning up until they start, non-traditional season practices. And even then, it's still a big part of what they're doing. So mostly it's just the in-season, we're trying to maintain what we've built through the off-season. And then obviously the off-season, that's when we really try to grow. So just balancing load.
So what are the key things that you focus on for an athlete? And maybe they're different in-season, out-season, but some key points. Maybe it's different per sport too, but those key things that you really like an athlete to really key in on and really focus on.
Well, I've got specific strength standards for each team, different lifts for each of them, but strength is kind of the bottom, the base that brings everything else up. And then, I try to be really well-rounded with speed development, plyometric and power activity, and then some type of conditioning, whether that's, soccer and field hockey running a lot, or, some of our other sports who are more just capacity that we build in the weight room. But I try to keep all the elements in there and then have standards for each, and those change sport by sport. Exercises change, but for the most part, the way the structure is set up, you know, we start by building, and we just kind of work backward from where we want to go.
So what has been the most rewarding part, working with an athlete and seeing that growth in them? What has been the most rewarding part of that?
Well, I think it's hitting those standards, because I tend to, you know, set them on the high side just because, you know, I think we have the ability to reach them. So, you know, if we go through an off season and we meet the standards that we're looking for, then I look back on it and say that's a really good off season, and it's really rewarding because I know that they're as prepared as they can be leaving for the semester, whether that's to go home for summer or winter break, and then it's on them to maintain and keep it up on their break before they come back into season. So the most rewarding part is just meeting those standards and getting as much productive work done as we can in the time we have.
I think another unsung thing, or really not as prominent thing, but probably very prominent for you, is maintaining health of the student athletes throughout this procedure and trying to build up, whether it's conditioning or whatever, to help them avoid injury. Talk a little bit about that aspect of your job.
Yeah, that's managing injury is, to me, it's managing load. Like in season, for example, that's why I talked so much about in the beginning about managing our strength and conditioning load while they're practicing and playing, because they're already getting so much that we can't just continue adding. But at the same time, what we do give them is hopefully productive to stave off injuries. So, you know, we have to maintain strength or we're at risk for injury, but if we add too much load, then we're at risk for injury. So managing load is the biggest thing. And that's, you know, the off season is the time that we can gain tissue resilience and just capacity through the whole body and all of its qualities. And that's really the best you can do in terms of preventing injuries. Is just be as resilient as possible, and that's what we work on every day.
So I'm actually very curious what your busiest time of year usually is, because it's obviously busy year round.
Yeah.
But is there a specific season that is crazier than any other?
I don't really think so, because like in the fall, you've got 4 teams competing, and then, you know, track is one you can throw in the late fall. And so they're all in season, but all of our off-season training teams are, they're full go with 3-4 times a week. In the spring, it's just the opposite. So I wouldn't, fall and spring, it's kind of the same, just in different ways. But spring, I guess, could be a little heavier just because some of the bigger teams take up more sessions and it's more on the calendar. But I get a nice break in winter and summer when athletes are away. So, but it stays pretty busy no matter what when they're here. So.
And another thing that in the room, in terms of an athlete, sometimes you need to motivate an athlete to work. How do you approach that of the line of motivating an athlete to whereas if they're not going to put in the work, they're not going to put in the work? Where is that line for you?
That could be challenging just because the best case scenario is when athletes are intrinsically motivated. And they want to get better themselves. And I think most athletes, at least in context of their sport, do. Well, I would say all, I would hope, if they're here playing collegiate athletics. But the strength and conditioning room is different because it's not your sport. So not everybody has the same motivation to do the other stuff that, it doesn't initially show up on the field or court or track, but is going to down the road. So that's best case scenario if you get those athletes that are really just intrinsically motivated. And if you get a couple of those on a team, that drives a culture. So it's that makes my job a lot easier. Now, when you don't have that, or you have maybe a young team that is still growing into that role, you have to kind of push the envelope a little bit and just explain to them, first of all, like, what we're doing is going to lead to this. This is how this helps you. This is challenging, but this is why we're doing it. And then, most of the time, I really think that throughout athletes' time here, at least from what I've seen, they grow to like the strength and conditioning programs. Not every piece of it, of course, but I think they grow to like the training aspect, and because they start to see the benefits or the work pay off.
So you touched on it a bit, but I want to kind of go more into it, how you try to lean on some of the ones who are motivated in the weight room. How important is that for your job?
Super important. that can make or break a team culture, honestly. Having one or two of those athletes can make or break it. And you know, with the yearly awards that we do, the Iron Mountie of the Year award, that's one of the biggest things I look at is just the leadership quality that's kind of an intangible. Like it's not something I necessarily can teach or push you into. Like somebody just has to kind of step into that role. There's always somebody that is going to be a captain or something on a team, but and a lot of times it's those individuals, but it could be anybody in the weight room, because you don't have to be the best on the field or court, track, whatever, to excel in the weight room. And that's, you know, if you can be a leader in the weight room with me, then that goes a long way for me in terms of how I look at just the quality of an athlete's effort in the weight room.
So let's finish off by talking about that, the Iron Mountie Award, and how you give that out every week. And you touched on one of the things that you look for in the Iron Mountie Award, but what is the other criteria that you like to look at for this award?
Well, it essentially comes down to a couple pillars. So leadership is a big one, whether it's by example or vocally, just pulling others along, showing others that you work hard by example. That's a big one for me. You know, performance is another one. So if you're a vocal leader, but you don't have the skill set or the strength or other physical qualities that others do, you can still be a leader in some ways, but it's challenging to get everybody behind you if you can't show out in that way. So performance just in general, and then, you know, one other big thing is really consistency and growth mindset. So wanting to grow and be better, coming to me for help when it is necessary, and just kind of seeing the long-term process in terms of growth mindset, and just consistency in terms of it becoming expected. Like you know, at first you start to notice certain people like that, and then after a while, if you're not paying attention, you don't, because it's just expected. They show up and that's what they do. But I try to pay close attention to those individuals who kind of show that to me. And you know, that's really what I look for in terms of someone who's well-rounded as an Iron Mountie.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for taking the time and stopping by.
Absolutely, thanks.
And Sidelines continues after this. Do not go anywhere. That's going to do it for this one, folks. To stay up to date on all things Mansfield Athletics, head over to GoMounties.com. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.